Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Josh Little, who's the founder of the Volley app. Josh, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
Hey, so I'm looking forward to learning about this because I think the way that I'm looking at this website and the background, this looks really groundbreaking and, dare I say the word, disrupting to the industry of communication. So I'm looking forward to that. But give us a little bit of your background and what led you to found this new technology.
Well, thank you. Yeah, my background, I started my career as a teacher and quickly realized that I could take those same skills and do well in the corporate world in sales. And so then I went to 3 Fortune 500 companies in sales and then sales training and marketing roles. And it was really scratching my own itch, trying to build an e-learning program that caused me to start my first company. I just built the company that I wish existed in Maestro. And from there, I've built 4 companies. Volley's number 4. All tech companies, software related, that have now seen hundreds of millions of users and have had great success in my career as an entrepreneur. Kind of a far cry from teaching, but I like to think that I've been thinking about this problem that we're solving with Volley for over a decade. My second company, Bloomfire, is kind of one of the premier knowledge management platforms out there, and just trying to solve for getting the right information to the right person at the right time is a hard problem to solve, and that's one of the things we're approaching with Volley.
Well, it's interesting that it seems like with a problem, the phrase "the problem," as you peel back the layers of the onion of that problem, you solve this, and then you found, I got to solve this now, and then now there's another one, and whether those are nuances of the product or the software, that's fine, or it's a full-on pivot new business. But yeah, you've probably been dancing around the same problem and creating these things for, like you said, quite a long time. So what is the problem that Volley solves?
Well, at the core, it's the inefficiency of business communication. You really have 2 options when you want to communicate to move work forward, which are either typing or some form of typing or some form of talking. And typing is inefficient because it's slow. We can speak 7 to 8 times faster than we can write business communication, whether that's a text or a Slack message or an email. So when we're choosing to type or write communication to our team, we're choosing something that is slower because it is more flexible. And on the other hand, written communication just renders itself inadequate at some point. At some point, we just need to talk to move work forward. This is why executives spend 28 hours a week in meetings, is because they know they need to talk to get buy-in, to get consensus, to make decisions, to understand where everything is. And talking brings in a whole host of other inefficiencies, because when we have to meet or jump on a call or do something synchronous, we have to stop what we're doing. We have to get in that place. We have to wait for others to arrive. Even if it's a virtual meeting, I have to be sitting in my chair, plugged into Zoom or whatever it is at a certain time. And that, with that coupled with the fact that time spent in meetings has increased 10% a year over the last 20 years, 13% just since social distancing alone, creates kind of a pandemic of meeting culture in itself, that you have these back-to-back-to-back meetings and this interruptive sort of day. 65% of executives feel that meetings are the number one cause of getting their own, or number one prevention of them getting their own work done. So at the core, we're trying to solve for inefficient communication.
And isn't it an element of the meeting inefficiency that you don't get done what you think or need to get done in that meeting because you start talking about something and then, squirrel jumps in, or shiny object syndrome, or you get off into rabbit trails, or all of a sudden it's like, what did we even accomplish? Nothing got done. We just punted the ball down in the field just a little bit further and we never got anything done. So maybe that business communication problem is, man, if we just stay focused and nail this thing, man, we can move on to the next meeting and be way more effective. Is that something you found as well?
Absolutely. Meetings have become their own kind of parade and show. You mentioned the meandering of the conversation, but there's also the kind of necessary, obligatory small talk that needs to happen. And have you ever noticed that meetings just magically fill the time that you give them? They're 30 minutes or 60 minutes. Because we understand this time box and we kind of work toward it. And you're right, we might lose track with those things. So meetings are a large leak of efficiency and productivity. One study I saw estimated American companies spend $399 billion on unproductive meetings. And
I would even wonder, and I have no clue what your app does, but this is what we're going to get into in a second, but I'm assuming since there's technology involved, there becomes also a way for tracking or documenting the meeting, whereas you contrast that with a typical meeting in live or Zoom or whatever. And it's like, okay, great. See you next meeting. And what did we do? What did we say? Who did what and where? So is that one of the aspects of what you're proposing is not only do we make them more efficient, but now here comes a record of who said what and when. And now you've got a nice solid representation of what we covered.
Absolutely. That's one of the benefits of written communication is it's captured. We can refer back to it. We can scan it, right? And never before in the history of the world have we had any of our meetings or live conversations or water cooler or calls recorded or documented in any way. There are some technologies do it, but they're not easily readily available. So that's what we're proposing with Volley is what if we took the flexibility and the documentation of written communication, all of the benefits of written communication, and coupled them with the benefits and the richness that we get from talking live and the speed that we also get, and pull them together in one product, which allows you to have asynchronous video conversations with your team. And when I say asynchronous, I mean not at the same time versus a synchronous meeting or call. We have to, at 3 o'clock on Tuesday, we have to do this thing together, right? But with an asynchronous conversation, you can break those turns up because it turns out conversations are turn-based. You've taken some turns in this one. I've taken some turns. Technology has not enabled us to, and certainly can enable us to break those turns up, to take them in the moment that we are able to, find the lulls in productivity after we've just had a great session of flow and solving this new problem. That's when I can pick up and give an answer to this person or ask a question to that person.
So let's now, that's exactly what I would have suspected. So that's great that that's one of the features. Let's now dive into what does that look like? So let's say that you're going to have a meeting about whatever, right? Who cares the topic? It doesn't matter. But there are how many people? What is the sweet spot? You're going to say, hey, this really is great for meetings of 2 to 4 people, 5 to 10, or does it matter at all? What does it look like from here's the meeting and how does this app then bring it to life?
Yeah, that's actually an astute observation. It's really good for whatever is good for meetings or talking live. There is a certain number in the group. As the group moves from 2 to 4 to 6 to 8, you suddenly transition from a group conversation where people share airtime equitably to a more of a conversation where there's 2 or 3 people talking with an audience. So same is true. We're not solving for the nature of group dynamics here, but what we are solving are, some interesting things that by allowing this conversation to be broken up. So you asked for an example. I maybe am interested in trying to think of an example with my team because we're using it all day, every day. But I'm interested in talking about what swag we're going to buy and why for our launch party that we just had last week. And so I would just simply pick it up and record a volley to just say, hey, team, just looking at these options. I'm going to turn my camera on. I'll show you. Here's option A. Here's option B. Here's option C. Just wondering what you're thinking about these. And, this is the budget I was thinking. Any other feedback? Probably not a great example, but that's the idea. And then that's not an urgent problem that I need to solve, but I'd like to solve it in some next day or two, right? So then other team members jump in, chime in, give this thumbs up, react to that volley to show me that they're in favor, or record a new volley to give some different ideas, and the conversation evolves from there. We take turns and in an ongoing on-demand conversation. And
then is that I'm going to use the word an event, but on the app, is it a place where you would go, volley about swag, and then up underneath that is nested all of the responses so that you can then later go back to it and go, let's see what this person did, said, whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like your text messages. You have different, as you look down your text messages, most of them are one-on-one. Some of them are group messages with a few people, with large groups. It's just like that. You have conversations that you've created with different people for different reasons. You can name them, such as marketing ideas or daily stand-up or general or engineering or whatever you would want to label those conversations. And then you can invite or remove people from conversations. And they kind of, just like naturally conversations evolve and are fluid and dynamic, they also evolve that way in Volley.
And so what would you say to people that would say, okay, call me old-fashioned and traditional, but one of the benefits of a meeting about those three topics or whatever we need to talk about is the fact that it's got a start and an end, and we handled those things and then we moved on. Whereas this volley, it's like, oh, hey, what do you think of this? And then this person chimes in and that person, and it's all over the place, and I just feel like I'm getting hit from all angles. Where is the kind of the completeness feel or the conclusion feel to that volley?
It's a good question. And I had it initially when we started building the product. And it's one of those concerns that seems like it might be valid, but in real life, it just never shows up. Like when you're having when you pop into someone's office and ask them about, an initiative or whatever question you have, there's a natural feel for when that conversation has ended or when we've reached some sort of conclusion. The same is true with Volley. It's just the turns may or may not be separated by time. So while that does seem like a valid concern, I've just not seen it in the wild. I've not seen it with we've got a couple hundred teams on Volley right now in the beta version, or with my own team. We sort of are really good at conversation naturally, and we tend to just kind of instinctively know when those things end. And sometimes that might be the end of this conversation, and that conversation just moves down, or we can leave that conversation. Other times it's just something that we're going to pick up at another time for another reason, sort of like Slack channels.
And then what about what I would imagine is like the big problem, like you said, you're an educator, I'm in education, my kids are in school, and here's a big problem that everyone has: group projects. Like I'm in a group of 5 people and we've got to do this by this date, and I'm the only one doing it because I want a good grade, and this person never showed up and they're going to get the same grade. So with that thought in mind, what about the group to your team, and you send the volley over and you're like, hey, what about this? And then everyone's responded but 1 or 2 people, and you're like, it's not a closed loop, it's an open loop, and we still got to get, and you're like, hello. Whereas in a meeting, it's like, okay, everyone, okay, Tom, what did you say? You haven't said much. And then how do you make sure that everyone is contributing so that you can then move on to the next topic, or kind of mentally feel like that was handled?
Well, we don't have them built now, but we do have some features coming down the road that we think would solve that problem. When we get to transcripts, for example, so automatically all of your Volley conversations are recorded. You can refer back to them, but that's only as useful as video is useful in scanning, right? So we're going to have transcripts, and then once we have transcripts and we're transcribing the speech, we're seeing the ability to do at mentions and just say, at Spencer. Haven't heard from you yet, and then Spencer gets a push notification. But at the end of the day, if you have bad communication hygiene, there's no software that's going to solve that for you. It's a human problem. You have to just decide that you're going to be responsive.
Yeah, if you're in a face-to-face meeting and someone doesn't contribute, you might feel uncomfortable calling them out anyway. So you might not go, Tom, what are your thoughts? You've not said anything, because now Tom's mad, upset, whatever. So that is a good point there. Let's shift now over into, I see on your website, imagine sales calls that kick off now, not next Thursday at 3:30. So how would this technology work in a sales call? Because in my initial thought would be, you go to these sales training things and it's like, wow, you need to get them in the moment, and like imagine the pain of what you're experiencing and what would it take to get to this, and look at what you don't have and look at our solution. Well, you lose that if it's back and forth. So what are some of your takeaways on how this is going to help kind of penetrate through that in a sales call relationship?
Yeah, well, as a career sales professional myself, I sell by, not only authority, but also by getting people to like me as soon as possible. And so my goal is to make some sort of personal relational connection with that individual as fast as I can. And when I leave that to a text message or an email, I'm missing a huge opportunity to kind of put my personality and my face forward and show, hey, I just made this custom thing for you. And tools like Loom or Vidyard or others have pioneered this and shown that actually when you send someone a video or a text message that has your face and a little video of your intro, they get insanely better click-through rates than, wow, I have a hard time speaking English right now, than traditional just emails or text, right? So that's what Volley does, except it threads that into a conversation. And I would say, if the momentum of the conversation is what you had, I don't know that you had much anyway. Someone that is sincerely interested in what you're doing is going to play ball, and this is a way that they can play ball easier than just typing a comment back on a Loom video or an email.
I would say that so many times we have diarrhea of the mouth when it's on a sales call, and you're like, and it's like, dude, I just had a quick question, and I think if you overwhelm people, that you don't make that right impact. So if you have that little snippet of a personal touch with a video, and you're like, hey, do you ever have this problem with it? Hey, let me know what you think. Now they're focused on that one thing, and then now it's like the little breadcrumb trail. You're drawing them in, and then if it does, 2 or 3 questions or interactions or volleys in, now it's like, hey, why don't we jump on the phone and I can kind of show you this, what works for you next week? And now, this is maybe primed the pump for that full-on traditional sales call, but you wouldn't have gotten that opportunity otherwise because they didn't really fully understand without you giving these little snippets.
Absolutely. Or what if you could just go live in Volley? Stay tuned.
Yeah. Hey, you got a second real quick? I can show you right now. And they're like, yeah, that works, or whatever. So I think that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize. And I had this come up just yesterday, and it was and I was having a meeting with a client who's the sales manager for the company, and we were setting up this virtual summit for a couple weeks from now, and we have to interview the CEO. Well, the CEO, they emailed him and said, hey, let us know the time next week that you're available and what questions you think would be good to cover on the interview. And the CEO took 2 days and then responded with, here's some great questions. But the request for the time, it was buried, is what we're thinking, into the initial question. So it's like, hey, what do you think would be a great time for next week? Send that. And then, hey, what do you think? And so in your mind, you're keeping it nice and crisp and clean. And that's just human nature. That's the way we all work. And in fact, I personally get pitched dozens of times from PR agencies going, hey, can you interview this person, that person? And when they do it right, it's like, hey, here's this person, here's their one sheet, here's their LinkedIn. What do you think? And here's what they talk about. But I have used this example so many times, and it fits right along with what we've been saying. One time pretty recently, this agency emailed and goes, hey, here's these 9 people. And I really think it was 9 people. Paragraph, link, and I'm like, ugh, I hit delete. And a few days later, they emailed back, hey, what'd you think? And I said, hey, let me be honest with you. I don't have time to go review 9 at one time. You send me 1 at a time, and I can say yes or no. I think that's the busyness that we're in, and that's one of the elements of the problem that you're solving with this. It's like these quick little popcorn style, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, I love popcorn style. That's a great way to explain it. This is why text messaging works, is because you just don't write long text. One, it takes too much time to do that, but it forces you to be concise. And this is what we've seen with Volley, is that while you're recording your video, you're all in. You're not worried about what the other person is looking like, or did they look away, or are they getting my message or not. You're all in on recording that message. And when you do that, you have to be more precise in your communication and more concise in length. In fact, by breaking up the conversation, even if we were going to have a meeting and we gave ourselves 3 seconds to respond before anything, our responses would dramatically improve, because research shows that anytime you can wait more than 3 seconds to respond, you're going to come up with a better response. And so that's one of the many superpowers that the asynchronous video communication, namely, can allow you to have. Another one is inclusivity. We've all been in meetings where we've felt on the outside. We've all felt, that we're not being heard, or this person won't be quiet, or I can't get a word in edgewise. And that's because of that time box, and because of, again, bad communication hygiene. Well, Volley sort of equalizes that playing field, because everyone has an equal opportunity to hit the record button and to chime in and let their thoughts be heard.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Josh, thanks so much for coming on. It was really neat seeing how the inner workings of here's a problem and I just built a solution to it, and then see how this is working. So I know this is in beta, but people can join the wait list. So what's the best way that people can learn a little bit more and then get on the waiting list to see if that might be a solution for them?
Sure. Yeah, you can visit volleyapp.com, and you can check out the website, get on the wait list, or if you want to reach out to me, LinkedIn/LittleJosh.
Excellent. Well, Josh, thank you so much for coming on. It was really fun talking with you today.
You bet, Mike. Likewise. Thanks, man.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.